Hello, welcome to another video. I have got some Q's to A today. I asked you guys on Instagram for some questions to answer in a video coming soon. I've got so many questions that I've decided to split this into a part 1 and a part 2. This is part 1, so this will be the bookish content creation based questions, and part 2 will be more of the adulting, life, living alone, flat type questions, because a lot of people asked about that. So we really do have quite a few, so I'm gonna get through as many of them as I can and just hopefully give you guys some fun answers. So these are the bookish ones and content creation-y ones first. If you ever want to get involved in this kind of thing, I always post this kind of stuff up on my Instagram story, so you can follow me over there if you wanted to see any more like this. I am Books Nest over there as well. So without further ado, let's crack on with part 1 of this video, or of this series of the Q&A, part 1. The first question is, do you prefer to listen to music / background sounds while you read, or just have silence? My ideal reading conditions is one of two things. One, I'm either sat by a pool in a private villa in the sun in some lovely country. I'm saying that as like a dream scenario because the sound of the wave, or not the waves, but the water of the pool lapping against the edge of the pool is something I find immensely soothing. And I just, you know, I thought by putting myself in a private villa in this ideal situation, I'm kind of removing other people's noise. So that would be lovely. So I don't mind kind of naturey sounds, but secondly, more realistically, in the evenings when I'm reading, I tend to just stick on an ASMR library room or cozy room with a fire and some rain sound effects. I just pop that on my TV on YouTube and I find that really calming. I love the rain sounds and the fire crackles. So I do like having that kind of thing on in the background, and I don't mind having classical music on as well. The only thing is I find that if I'm listening to my classical playlist, which is a mix of soundtracks and classical songs as well, I find that sometimes that can influence how I'm reading. Like if I'm reading a scene that is particularly epic, I feel like I need an epic soundtrack on, versus if an epic soundtrack comes on during a sadder moment or slower moment in the book, I feel like that's misplaced, so it often affects the way I'm reading it, if that makes sense. So yeah, I do enjoy having something on in the background. I don't like just stark silence. What was the first book you read and loved? Apparently when I was a kid, I memorised the pages of a Thomas the Tank Engine book from my mum reading it to me, even though at that age I couldn't actually read myself, apparently. So that was probably the first book I read and loved. But more to memory, I remember reading and loving a lot of Enid Blyton's books, such as The Magic Faraway Tree and The Wishing Chair. Like, those kind of books were so magical and just lovely that I just really enjoyed them, and I think that they've been changed around a bit now. I don't know what the differences are, but they have been changed since I was a kid, so I don't know how much has been changed. I think there was someone called Dame Slap, and I think she's no longer in the books. But yeah, Enid Blyton was always a love of mine. I've read since I was a tiny weeny thing, so I can't really remember exactly the first book, but those are a couple of the ones that I know I very much enjoyed as a child. Someone says, Shadow and Bone TV show, all I want to do is create paintings of the characters. So I assume they're asking if I've watched it / going to watch it. I haven't watched it. I will watch it, but I won't watch it until I've read the whole series, which could be some time. I know that it's only the first book and then it's kind of bits from Six of Crows. I have read Six of Crows, but I can't really remember it, and I've read Shadow and Bone recently. So what I intend to do is read the other two in the Shadow and Bone series, maybe get them as audiobooks, and then read Six of Crows again and go forward to Crooked Kingdom, and then I will watch the series, because I will have the actors as the characters in my head if I watch it and then read it, and I don't necessarily want to do that, and I think that actually might stop me reading the series. I don't know if it's a series that I'm going to absolutely love, but I would like to read it, and I think it'll probably be an audiobook, so I will get there. But every time I go on Twitter at the moment, it's just spoiler galore for it, so I'm like just avoiding looking at anything that says any of the character names I recognise or anything about Shadow and Bone. Okay, the next one's going to require thinking. 5 books you think everyone should read. I would be a hypocrite if I didn't put my favourite book on there. So my favourite book is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I loved it. I think everyone should read it. It's beautiful. It's a mystery. It involves books about books. It involves a love of literature. I adored it, so everyone should read that. Then I also think everyone should read The Bridges of Madison County, which is about a very fleeting affair, but it reminds us of passions and what we love in life and how to value those kind of things. I can't remember who the author is of that. Robert something or other? Hang on. Robert James Wallop, that is the author. So that's 2. The third book I would recommend, I think, would be Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. I just thought this was a brilliant story. It felt compelling and gripping, but I also think it's an incredibly important story to read, as it takes takes place primarily in the 1800s, where a woman from the 1970s is pushed back in time and is confused as a slave. I just think it's a really good book, but also a really important book, and can possibly be quite an educating book as well. Two more. Oh, it's really hard to like narrow down, because I think I want to pick books that I think people should read because they should get a perspective that they wouldn't normally get, not because the book is amazing. I want to say The Lost Apothecary, why can I never say that word? Apothecary by Sarah Penner, which is a book I read really recently. I'm putting that on the list because it's still fresh in my brain, and the premise is to be your own person and to stand up for yourself, and it's a very feminist, empowering book, and it is very much like women do not need anyone but themselves to pick themselves up, or other women to help them just like be the best versions of themselves and be empowered, and the fact that you don't need to rely on having a man around, which society is just still seeping into our brains, despite the fact that we're in 2021 and there are so much more than just having a man around. I mean, no. Anyway, this book really questions all of that, and I think it's really good and it'll make you think, so that one. And book number 5, okay, book number 5 is actually one I haven't read yet, but I will be reading very, very soon. My mum has told me I absolutely have to read this one because of how insightful it is and how eye-opening it is to what's going on our planet. And that is A Life on Our Planet by David Attenborough. I have it over there. I'm going to listen to an audiobook because he narrates it, and also read along with it because there's pictures and stuff inside that I want to see what the references are for. But I think that that is meant to be a very eye-opening book, but I recently acquired a copy, so I will put that tentatively on the list. I know it's weird to put one on I haven't read, but I think that that's meant to be like a really eye-opening educational book. Okay, this one kind of fits into part 1 and part 2 categories. I recently started working and would love some tips on how to balance work with reading and blog. I find that I just have to set myself time in the evenings and all the mornings. So if I wake up early, I will read for a little bit in bed for like 20 to 30 minutes because I find that really helps me start my day off nicely. But I always make sure I read before bed. So I always get into bed about 20 to 30 minutes before I want to go to sleep, and I will sit and read. But all of this week, I've actually just been reading for like 2 hours sat in my chair in the evenings. I think it's just about carving out that time when you want to read and just knowing that you've got X amount of time free to do that, and just making sure that it's something, if you want to, that you prioritise, because otherwise it can just get too much. But also, if you have a commute to work at all, if it's walking, driving, train, if you're able to, obviously not reading whilst you're driving, but like put an audiobook on if you're walking or driving, and if you're getting on the train, obviously that's dedicated reading time. So yeah, it's just about finding time for it in your day, I think. A lot of people asked about Shadow and Bone. Best book for a birthday present. I'm going to say The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. This was a book I received from a friend ages ago when I moved from my hometown to a different town. We moved house and she sent me a book because she knew I was feeling iffy about the move. And I loved it. It was whimsical and bizarre and like nothing I'd ever read before, and I don't think I could put it in any genre box. So I think for that reason it would be perfect as a birthday gift, because it doesn't really require anyone to be into any specific genre. It can just kind of fold over multiple, as long as that person is okay with quite a creatively bizarre book. How do you annotate a book? Okay, so I don't often annotate my books, but if I am going to annotate a book, I like to write in it. So I specifically buy myself a copy that will be written in. I break the spine, I make it a bit rough and ready, and then I just find like the finest tipped biro/ink pen I can, because like otherwise it's going to bleed into the pages and it just gets messy. And I will just post-it note or turn the pages down and just write everything I think about and highlight things. I'll usually highlight lines I like or moments that I think, if it's a reread, that I'm noticing a foreshadowing, something that I know is going to come later, or bits that annoy me, or bits that I want to discuss, and things that I just want to have for reference to go back to. Failing that, maybe I would stick a post-it note in if I didn't want to actually write in the book, and use little sticky tabs again on the pages, on the edge. But it's not something I do a crazy amount of time. It's more something I would do if I was like deliberately planning to, or was reading it for a book club or something. How do you manage when the Instagram algorithm slumps your posts mentally and content-wise? I think the only thing I can say here is just push through it. If you are wanting to grow your account and just kind of keep posting the content that you love, the algorithm is going to hit you sometimes, and it's going to hit you mentally and on your feed. And I think the only thing you can do is push through, because you will always come out the other end. Like, it hits me. I come out the other end. I'm in a big slump of follower growth at the moment. I was reaching a point where I was going up by about 100 to 200 a day last year, and then I just kind of fell right below that, and now I can't get quite back up, but I know I will get back up. I think it's just having the determination to keep going, keep posting, remind yourself that you're posting ultimately because you enjoy it. And yes, the algorithm can be a pain in the ass, but ultimately, if you're enjoying the content, then hopefully that's part of a win for you. Do you ever write or plan on writing a novel? I have written 2 full-length books. I wrote one in NaNoWriMo 2016. That's never going to see the light of day, I can tell you that much. It was a YA typical storyline thing. It's in a box. I don't even know where it is. It might not even be on my computer anymore. Then I wrote another one, which is a middle grade, that kind of reflects experiences both myself and my sister have had crammed into the age of a 10-year-old. So Ava is 8. I wrote this when she was about 6 or 7. I'm 25, I wrote it when I was about 23. So I've kind of slammed us together to make one person and have built it off of experiences such as divorced parents and a new sibling arriving. I love it, and I am in the middle of editing it, but I have so much stuff happening that it's just difficult to dedicate time to it, but I will keep editing it. It's nothing I ever thought I would write, but actually I was sick of seeing divorced parent storylines that weren't my version of divorced parent storylines. I know everyone's gonna have their own experiences, but I just wanted to see something that reflected mine, so I thought, well, I'll write it then. What advice do you have for someone who wants to become a book blogger and reviewer? Go for it, dive in. I think just, you know, if you definitely are sure you want to do it, set yourself up, get a username you love, get a cool profile picture, write that bio, and just start doing it. The only way that you're going to be able to see progress and see an audience and see people that you can interact with is if you just jump in and start. I think also accept that it's probably going to be slow to start with, but that's okay. Like, these things take time to grow, they take time to develop. It's absolutely fine if you're not jumping in and immediately hitting X amount of followers or X amount of readers. Just be patient with it. It took me about 3 years to properly get the ball rolling, so don't feel disheartened by seeing other people that aren't experiencing it in the same way as you, because everyone's going to do it differently. I love it. I think it's great. I would always encourage people to come along and join this amazing community. A lot of people have asked me about whether I've thought about writing a book. Someone's asked me about any book recommendations for an English lit degree. I didn't do an English degree, I did a film production degree, so like making and vaguely studying films. Vaguely. We studied films, but mainly it was making them. So I am not sure, but I would say if you ask on Twitter, I bet there'll be loads of people to be able to give you advice. Favourite book you've received in a book box, aesthetically speaking? Okay, I've just painted my nails, and I know that if I get this book off my shelves, I'm gonna ruin my nails. But I think it would be Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerry Maniscalco, because those spray pages, the stenciled edges from Fairy Loot, are stunning. Hang on, I'm gonna try and do it. If I ruin my nails, then just rip. I always ruin them, and I haven't yet, so. I mean, look at that. It's so pretty. The colours, what's not to love? This does not fit into books, but I'm still going to answer it in this one because it's a fun question. If you could be any animal for a day, what would it be? I would be some sort of bird, but not like a bird that's going to be squashed or eaten or attacked. Maybe like an eagle or something. I would just love to fly, but I want my conscious brain to know that I'm flying. I don't just want to do it for a day and wake up the next day and forget it happened. I think surely either that or some sort of sea dwelling creature, even though the ocean terrifies and fascinates me at the same time. Because again, that feeling of just being able to propel yourself through a space, but a bird, definitely a bird. The most valuable piece of content creation advice you think there is? Okay, the number one thing is probably what I've already said. Be patient, it takes time, it's not gonna happen overnight. And don't expect it to fall into your lap. Like, you have to go and get it. You have to work towards it, you have to put hours in, you have to dedicate time. If you get to a point where you want paid collaborations, you have to ask for them. They're not going to necessarily fall into your inbox. I mean, they may, but most of the time, anything that I get that's paid collaboration, I do ask for. So be patient, take time, it takes time, and just be dedicated. Again, this doesn't really fit into either part of these videos, but I'll answer it here. Tell us something people generally are mistaken about you. Okay, I don't know if this is quite so much the same thing now, because I now talk about a lot of sex positivity things and I'm a little bit bolder in the way that I'll say things, but I think a lot of people think I'm very innocent, and I don't really mean that in any specific way, but I think people often are surprised if I swear and are surprised when they meet me because they think that I'm a lot more, like, they expected something very innocent, and I don't know whether naive would be the right word to say. I don't think so, but I think that a lot of people think that about me, and I've had people meet me in person before and be like, oh, I expected you to be really quiet and innocent and just not the way you are, whereas I'm very confident, I'm quite loud, I would say, and bold. Like, I'll always just say the things that no one else will say, and I'll just be blunt about things. I swear a lot when I'm talking to friends and stuff, so yeah, I think that's something, because I think it's because I'm so happy to be positive, and like I want everyone to be friendly, and I've got that attitude to life. I want everyone to be happy and smiley and positive. I think sometimes that can misconstrue what I am like as a person. I mean, they're both me, like everything you see is genuine, but yeah. So it sounds really bad. Like, I'm not saying I'm not innocent. Like, I don't go and break the law on a regular basis. So yeah, I don't know if that's the reason. I'm not sure, guys. I've actually got to stop filming in the middle of this video because I have got my bubble coming round, and I thought I could fit this in before they got here. I could not. So the camera setup's totally gonna change because the camera's in the middle of my lounge at the moment. I will continue this a little bit later. Okay, I'm back, and I'm so sure that this camera angle has absolutely changed, but here we are. Part 2 of part 1 of answering your questions. I think the last question I was answering was, tell us something people generally are mistaken about you. So what else have we got? Again, it's not like strictly book related, but it is language related, so we're gonna have it for this one. What language do you really want to learn? I was learning French and German when I was at school, and I can kind of remember a little bit of the French, such as où est la bibliothèque? Where is the library? So I could possibly continue with the French type of thing, but I would be really interested to learn Japanese. I would love to visit Japan one day, and I think knowing the language would make it a little bit less daunting. So maybe Japanese, but maybe French, because that sounds a lot easier, possibly, because I already know a bit of it. What got you into reading? I have been surrounded by readers since I was tiny. Both my mum and my grandma read, my dad reads. It was kind of inescapable for me to not read. I love it. I love reading, and I've always been around that kind of environment, so it's kind of been something that's just been brought up. I've been brought up with. My grandma and I would always go to bookshops, my mum and I would always sit and read, like so many different factors. So I would say what got me into reading? My family, my lifestyle as a small human being. What is your favourite book of all time? The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz-Zafón. I've mentioned it already. It's amazing. It is supreme. It reigns grand high in my ratings of books ever, so that one. Are there any books that you'd give a higher rating to based on book talk pressure? Okay, so I completely get what this question is talking about, because there is a lot of pressure to read certain books and also like certain books because of the hype. I personally don't feel like I rate for anything other than my own enjoyment and my own intake of the book. A good example being that I recently finished A Little Life. Now, I don't actually think I enjoyed that book all that much, but I gave it 4 stars because when I was running it through Corpile, which is G from Book Roast rating system, there's a link below, I was giving it high for writing and character, but low for my enjoyment, so it kind of balanced out as a 4. So I didn't really enjoy that all too much, but because that was what Corpile put it out as, that was what I rated it as. So no, I don't feel like the pressure to rate books high, but I feel the pressure to like books that everyone else is liking. I think with A Little Life, everyone said they cried, everyone said it was amazing, and I just didn't quite feel that. So I certainly in that situation felt the pressure with that specific book, but generally I would never rate a book based on that pressure. It would just affect how I felt about picking up the book. Often if a book has a lot of hype around it, I feel like I don't want to pick it up because I don't know if it'll live up to the hype. What 3 books would you take on a deserted desert island? The Pro of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, because it is so big and there are so many different story angles that I feel you could read it again and again and still get something new from it. Some kind of animal encyclopedia, so I knew what was safe and what wasn't. I've got David Attenborough's Life on Earth, which is a big hardback book with loads of different things in it, so maybe something like that would be helpful. I'm not going to say the cliche answer of how to build a boat or whatever it is, or a raft, but I'm just trying to think what would be... I want a book that is going to be entertaining and chunky enough to keep me going, and something that would entertain me and offer me some kind of value. Maybe like a collective edition of Lord of the Rings, like all 3 in one, because that would certainly keep me going and also something that I know I love and there's a lot of brilliant quotes, so that. Happy book recommendations. The Heartstopper series. So happy, so lovely. I'm just gonna look at my bookshelves as I suggest these. Eliza and Her Monsters I always remember as being a happy book, I think. The Unlikely Escape of Uriah Heep isn't like overtly joy throughout the whole thing, but it made me feel happy because it was reminiscent of book characters I loved as a child. When Dimple Met Rishi, that's quite a happy book. It's set within the summer, I think, so I always feel like when books are set in the summer, they're good. Well, not they're good, but like they feel happy. Under a Dancing Star by the author who I forgot the name of, Laura Wood? Yes, Laura Wood. That is a Much Ado About Nothing retelling and I loved it. Very happy book. And The Pages & Co series by Anna James, which is a middle grade trilogy at the moment. I think there's going to be more, and it follows a girl who can walk into the pages of books. So that's obviously also very happy. I think those are my happy book recommendations. The final question I've got is one that I've been thinking about the whole time I've been filming. Worst book you've ever read? I don't think I can answer that naturally. There isn't one that comes to mind. There are books that I've not really enjoyed, but I can't actually list the worst book I've ever read. I can't think of one that would overtly be the worst. So I don't know for that one. I think I'm gonna have to be disappointing and say that I can't give that answer because I just don't know what it would be and I feel like I would be forcing it to come up with one. So I'm not sure for that one. But that was the last question. Those are your bookish questions answered. If you wanted to come back for round 2, I will be answering questions on living alone, owning a home, my job, work-life balance, anything like that. There was quite a few like that in the questions box, so I'll be answering those. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. If you've got any more questions, do feel free to ask them below in the comments, or you can subscribe to see more of my face on your feed, and also you can click the bell button apparently to be notified when I post so you won't miss part 2 going live. You can also, if you wanted to support in any other way and get a bit more content from me, join my Patreon, which is a very exciting space I absolutely love. There's more content there from me. It's just a way to support as well, and I appreciate every single one of my Patreons. So that's all linked down below, as are my socials and all that kind of thing. Thank you guys so much for watching. Keep smiling and stay positive.